Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Alarms Day podcast. We're here with Caleb.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Hope y'all are doing well. And I have an announcement. Caleb is now our new co host officially. And don't worry, nothing happened to Daniel. He's still going to be in the podcast, so we're just switching roles here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, that just means that the role that Daniel served, he was just there to help facilitate the conversation and just keep things going and keep things in rhythm. But because of schedule issues and all that, and just like decision making, we just decided that I was gonna be the co-host, and I agreed to it, and here we are.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's get started. Well, my health update for this week is, for these 2 weeks, because we haven't had a podcast in 2 weeks, so just keeping working hard. And sometimes I feel like even though I have 6 days a week workouts, I feel like it's good to take days rest to not overwork, because that's also bad. Because if you overwork yourself, then that's preventing muscles from growing. So you have to kind of have rest days. So sometimes I might have an unexpected rest day if I was excessively burnt out from a certain workout or anything like that. So I started taking that into consideration because I realized it's much needed. And of course, I'm swimming 4 times a week now, more often than during final season, because now there's no college, and so more free time, so I get to swim more. And I'm preparing for a swim meet because I signed up for my first swimming competition in like 2.5 years, and it's my first long course swimming competition, which means the Olympic size pool in 3 years. So that'll be interesting. First time in 3 years long course. That's gonna be late July, so I'm preparing for that. Yeah.
I noticed you took pool in high school, so what's the difference preparing for? I guess was it more recreational?
Like which one?
Like the one you're doing now, the pool meet,
The swim meet.
the swim meet, yeah.
Yeah, it's not recreational. It's the same type of meet that was there before, but it's just that I'm training without a coach now. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's called American Long Course.
Okay.
So basically, teams from all over Texas and even other states can come to this meet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty big meet.
Yeah.
Not as big as national level, of course, but it's definitely you'll see some pretty tough swimmers there. Like you'll see swimmers of all ages there. Some of them are really professional.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's the type of meet I went to, the same exact meet I went there 3 years ago, to the 2019 American Long Course. I was that was another long course meet where that was when I was with my coach, but now I'm doing the same meet but without the coach.
Do you think it's do you find it more difficult doing some things without a coach?
Yeah, some things definitely more difficult.
Yeah.
But I feel like it just it comes with time and dedication, like depending on what you want, because coaches can definitely guide you in the right direction. They can guide you, they can help you with strokes and technique, but I feel like after you've been a swimmer for more than a competitive swimmer for 7 years, then it's up to you whether you want to have a coach or not. Of course, it's still good to have a coach. Even like very, very, very experienced swimmers, they have coaches. But I feel like if you're not able to afford a coach, or if that just doesn't fit your schedule or more flexible schedule, then it's okay to not have a coach.
Yeah.
As long as you have the motivation. That's the key thing. Like I lacked motivation before, but since we have a challenge with the ab competition and also the swim meet, those two things give me motivation. See, before I wasn't really paying for my practices and stuff. My parents were doing that, but now I paid for the swimming competition, and at least half of it I'm splitting it with my mom, so it's pretty pricey, and then I'm paying my annual fee for USA Swimming. So now that I'm actually paying for stuff, it's
you have to work.
I have to work for it. So I'm like, no, I can't lose money. I gotta go train. So that's one of the things that motivates me to swim without a coach. Of course, there's more things, but that's one of them. The money factor. Now that we're becoming adults and we're being more independent, we're paying more stuff So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what's driving. Uh, that's kind of what's driving me to
Work hard.
work hard, and that's not the only thing. The main thing is just I just find them more flexible, and uh, it just suits the lifestyle I'm living right now. I'm trying to do so many things at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do so many things, like the podcast. I'm trying to grow my math tutoring business. I'm trying to learn coding. So it just suits my very hectic lifestyle.
Yeah.
Having like a, more flexible and cheaper schedule, like schedule and cheaper classes, because I just pay for the membership of the pool without a coach. So
Yeah. Coaches are very important in sports in general, and I might
Yeah.
get a coach for boxing one day. So I think a good question to ask from your experience is like, what's the biggest difference between having a coach and not having one in the way that you just go about handling the activities?
the biggest difference is that you have you have the motive. Sometimes whenever you don't feel like doing something,
Mm-hmm.
you're prone to just exiting the pool and
Yeah.
not trying hard. But again, I remember the challenges that I have in mind, the competitions, the money that's on the line, and also just general physique. Like, I know that it's gonna take a toll on my health if I don't do good, and it's if I don't do good in general. So I have to keep pushing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are watching, the lifeguards watching,
Yeah.
everyone's watching. So like, you, like it's even without a coach, there is some degree of pushing, but
Mm-hmm.
just even with the coach, the difference is that coach pushes you more.
Yeah.
He pushes you more, and he makes some sets that you can't think of. So the sets, the workouts I make, are based on my coach's workouts. So they help me make my sets, because they gave me a lot of insight on how to make workouts.
Yeah.
Whenever I was with the coach, because I had some great coaches, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go off of what they do, but like ultimately the coach, another difference is that they decide what swim competition, what events you do. So
Mm-hmm.
like they want you to do good in certain ones, but if you want to kind of disperse and do a little bit more of that on the side, coaches would let you do that occasionally, but not as often. They would like to gear it towards one thing specifically. So that's the difference between a coach and being without a coach. It's just they control you a little bit more, not in the bad way necessarily, just maybe in a way where like you have they're kind of like training you to a certain goal, versus here you can always
Do what you want.
switch goals and do what you want. You can switch goals, but here and with a coach you don't switch goals. That's pretty much what they do, and that's not a bad thing at all. I actually like being with a coach. It's just that being without a coach, you're much more prone to distractions. You're
Mhm.
prone to being to not trying hard. It's kind of like having a life jacket,
Mm-hmm.
being with a life jacket decreases your chances of drowning, but being without a life jacket, I mean, it's still, people can swim, but like it's still riskier than with a life jacket, right?
Yeah, so I got a good question actually, because you mentioned distractions, and I'll kind of give my answer first. But, and I guess maybe it depends, but this is kind of hard for me to answer. But how do you focus on your task at hand and like not get distracted by things? Like me, for example, I think music sometimes is like not sometimes, but most of the time is a really good way. Like there's this dude named David Goggins, and here's the problem with music though. There's this dude named David Goggins, and he have you heard of him? David Goggins.
No, I haven't.
He's I think it was a Navy SEAL, and like he got like fat, and then he lost like 100 pounds. And he runs like 30 miles a day and like all this crazy. He's like
Oh my goodness.
he's a psychopath, and he did like 1,000 pull-ups or 17,000, some ridiculous, but he's insane. And so he said, when it comes to music, it's cheating, because the thing about working out is that part of the fatigue, most of it actually is mental. Like your thoughts in your head are like telling you, I don't want to do this anymore. And like when you listen to music, it kind of like blocks out those thoughts. So like in a way, that's kind of like a cheat code to like stay focused. But I'm also able to focus without music, and I think what it is sometimes for me is like I don't know. It's hard to describe, but it's like this. Normally, it's like aggression. Like I need to conquer this task, and then I guess that like helps me stay away from distractions. But like you said, it also helps with distractions if you have like a goal and like you don't want to fail at that goal. Like there's like external,
Yeah.
very
Motivation.
yeah external motivation
You
behind.
want to have good like abs or something. 'Cause swimming helps me with abs, so
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, so like when I was going to, I fought my brother once, like for fun, and like when I was training for him, it was finally I had like that push to like you said, when you got to meet everybody's watching and blah, 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 and nobody, it was just me and my brother, but it's like the competitive nature of it makes it more more prone for you to stay focused and stay disciplined.
Yeah, the competitiveness is definitely a factor. I do better in a competitive environment. I do
Mhm.
better whenever there's people that I have to race against. So
Mhm.
that's a thing that it's hard to find. Like whenever I swim by myself in practice, I don't have anyone to race against.
Mhm.
Most of the time, if I'm not training with friends. So basically, I just gotta race against the clock. That's
Mhm.
my goal. And then at the meet is when I feel like I'll have more adrenaline because there are actually other people there, and then I'll get to be competing against them. So it's kind of like, you know how usually tests in school are easier than they're easier than the preparation. All the preparation
Yeah.
is much harder,
Yeah.
and the test turns out to be easier a lot of
Yeah.
times. Well, basically, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Training in an environment where I'm isolated by myself, like
Mhm.
kind of helps me stimulate that inner motivation,
Mhm.
and then just kind of racing against the clock without anyone on my side. Because if I slow down, well, no, like I won't really notice that I'm still being first place, because first place equals last place.
Mhm.
It's the same thing, right? Because I'm not racing anyone, so uh, I gotta not slow down and not find any excuses to slow down. So basically, me training by myself kind of is much harder than training with someone. At least for me personally. For other people, it might be different, but for me personally, uh, competitive. And then once you get to the meet, the competitive nature of the meet raises up the adrenaline. So
Mhm.
my performance in practice might be like less than when I get to the meet and I race and I touch the wall and see the clock. I might be more astonished at the time there because that clock is because the racing, the competitive nature and the adrenaline additional environment there help me go faster rather than in practice, right? And then plus kind of more hype, you're more hyped for the meet, and that
Yeah.
makes you go faster. It's kind of like the test is easier than the practice, so
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like training with internal motivation versus training with external motivation is like training with weights and then training without. Because, like you said, with internal motivation, you have to dig deep. You have to pull out a lot of like your internal just feelings and all of this. You have to battle with yourself basically, and so that's one source of motivation. But in competition, you don't just have internal motivation; you have external motivation. So that's more. It's like two forces pushing you forward, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like the big difference with those two.
That's the thing. That's another difference. Kind of going back to your first question, right,
Mhm.
about the coach. Another difference is that with the coach, the pros is that you have a structured plan, right?
Yeah.
The con is that I think there is more external motivation with the coach. You don't have an opportunity to be internal because
Mhm.
you're with the coach. You're still being externally pushed, right? You're with peers. You're being externally pushed. But training by yourself, you're more internally pushed, and that's the beauty of training by yourself. You get to find internal motivation, so that way it's easier for you at the meet because you have two factors now, like you said, both internal and external. So
Yeah.
the pros of being by yourself is, of course, the internal motivation factor.
Yeah, you mentioned adrenaline earlier. Adrenaline. Let me speak up a little bit because I'm sitting back. Let me get serious. No, but you mentioned adrenaline earlier, and that's adrenaline is like a real interesting thing to me, at least for combat. But like when it comes to adrenaline, how do you handle that? Like, do you give into the adrenaline and like use it to push you forward, or do you kind of like slow it down a little bit, and then like let your adrenaline kind of go to the wayside. I don't know. How to explain.
Like during when I'm actually swimming in the race, or
Yeah, like
or
in the meet.
in,
In the meet.
right before the meet, or when I'm actually swimming in the.
Both.
So right before, I let it kind of be reserved because I don't want to release it all. Like I
Mhm.
kind of, it's just like hyping up like a plane getting ready to take off, and then once I dive in, I just go full on, just go ham in the water. Just try to, I just try to release that adrenaline whenever I go, like I just go with it, just try as hard as I can, and kind of like remember what I did in practice and try to imitate that technique, and I just try not to think about anything really.
Yeah. Do you I had a question. I forgot what it was. Do you? Damn, I forgot my question. When it comes to adrenaline, so for long distance, would you say that you use adrenaline less, and then for like a sprint, you use adrenaline more, or do you not even like think about it?
Well, I think adrenaline is the same for both races. Or like no, for short actually yeah, for short races I do more adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's just, for short races is more. It's just that for long races I try to reserve myself more because
Yeah.
starting out strong and then building up, and towards the end I try to go faster and faster. I mean, I still end up going slower than at the beginning because the paradox is that even though you don't try, you still end up going faster at the beginning, but my effort is still going to go up towards the end, right? Because I feel like the adrenaline kicks in towards the end of the long distance versus the beginning. So the short distance is the whole race, but the long distance race, it's always there, but like towards the end is more active because that's when the deciding moment of who wins the race really is.
Yeah.
So if you're for 500 yards, if you're very close next to someone, you've been close to them the whole time, and you just can't get past them, right? Towards the end, for the last 100 yards, you really want that adrenaline to kick in. So basically, that's when the majority of it kicks in for the last 100 yards, because there's a chance you could pass that person. So, and you didn't want to risk putting it all out at the first because you might get too tired, or else like that.
Yeah, the reason why I ask about adrenaline is because in combat, it's like boxing, for example, not even boxing, but just MMA too. At least in stand up, I'm able to tell. Like I'll look at a fighter and like see they're coming out and they're just filled with adrenaline.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you get that adrenaline up front, like that's why I mentioned long distance versus short distance. When you get that adrenaline up front and you have more rounds to go, you get that adrenaline dump, and like it mentally drains you, and by extension it physically drains you. So they're breathing heavy and all that, and it's not like they didn't train hard. Like they train over, like they're in beautiful shape, right? But because of the adrenaline dump that happens early on, they lose all of their energy, and so they're not able to perform. And so like I learned that from experience when I sparred some of my friends and when I boxed my brother, that like probably the most important thing to do first is to calm down.
Yeah.
Right? And like get your bearings and like stay focused and don't get emotional. Don't get like you're gonna have adrenaline no matter what, but you have to be able to control that adrenaline and not let that adrenaline control you. But I know that's at least the way it should be for long distance stuff. Right? That's how it is with me. Like I can tell, like I said,
Stay focused for long distance races, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell like when the adrenaline is, like when somebody's a front runner and that adrenaline is just pushing, and then people will struggle later on because they just wasted all that energy. So, yeah. Like so, for like what type of races are you doing?
For this meet?
Yeah.
I'm doing the 200 free, 100 free, and then the 100 fly, and maybe the 100 breast. I'm still gonna think about that, but I might just focus on butterfly and freestyle. I think it's just good to focus for 2 strokes, especially not having done a meet in 2.5 years. I think I should just do the 200 free, 100 free, and then 100 fly.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much short distance races, and the 200 in swimming, the 200 is considered mid distance.
Okay.
Because in running, I know the short distance, right? But
Yeah.
in swimming, it's considered mid distance.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that, and
Yeah.
it's pretty much gonna rely on pure adrenaline to complete all of them. There won't be any. I mean, for the 200, I might need to reserve a little bit. I'm just gonna go strong and good technique on the first 50 yards, but then on the last 150, on the second 50, I just build, and then the last 100, I just completely adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the hundreds are all out, just straight up.
Yeah, when you have like multiple races, like you said, you're doing 2 or are you doing
Three.
4? 3, okay.
And
So,
then
like,
maybe the fourth one. I was considering
Maybe the 4th. So like when you're at your 3rd race, do you feel kind of drained already, or is the break between the races enough for you to recharge?
It's enough for me to recharge.
Yeah.
Like if I had a good race, if I had a good time, then I feel more pumped for the second race.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had a bad race, then I feel drained. Like if I'm not happy with the results, then I feel more drained.
Mm-hmm.
But not always the case. If I have enough time up to recharge after the bad race, then I still feel good. Like, cause usually, and the good thing about those races is they're split up between 3 days. So
okay.
one race one day, second race the other day, third race the last day.
That makes
It's like
sense.
that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then finals is the evening. So if I make it to finals, then basically I'll have one race in the morning and second race in the evening. So
Mhm.
probably like an 8-hour difference. So I should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the final and the prelim have a morning and evening difference.
Like, you have like a specific routine that you do before, like while you're, I guess while you're at the meet, but before you race, like do you
Before I race, routine basically about 15 to 20 minutes before the race, I would warm up, do a couple laps, a few laps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the main warm up, of course, is more than a couple laps. The main warm up is a few hours before the race, but then I do a secondary warm up about 20 minutes before a race, and I stretch. I do all my stretches, like my flaps, my arm flaps. I just call my arms wings.
Yeah.
I do the motions, so I imagine myself swimming through the water, and I kind of. Here, let me stand up and demonstrate how I would do it for fly. For butterfly, I would do like this. So of course I can't lay down in the air like I would in the water, but I'm pretending that I'm in the water, and I would just imitate my stroke. I would imagine myself swimming
Yeah.
and just go through. Just try to imagine myself swimming and perfect my technique,
Yeah.
kind of like that. And it does two purposes. First, it helps me be confident about my technique. Second, it warms me up. So whenever you're nervous, like your warm up, so moving your arms kind of makes your muscles more activated and
Yeah.
ready to fire up whenever the time goes. And then my last part of the routine is I say a prayer before every race. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the times that actually there's only one time where I had like a real setup to fight kind of with my brother, which I know that sounds weird to some people fighting with your brother, but
But you
that's-
use boxing gloves, so that's understandable.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
we had
just a
heck,
game, you know.
Well, it wasn't a game. We were trying to clean each other up, but it was all love. Like it's the type of thing where, at least with me, I knew on my end. I think obviously neither one of us want to hurt the other,
Yeah.
but we kind of do. We want like short term hurt, not long term hurt. Basically,
Yeah.
is what I'm like it's for fun. It's dangerous definitely, but people skydive and all that, so who cares, right? But like so before that, I think most of my preparation was mental,
Yeah.
like just attempting to calm down the adrenaline and just like. And like I knew how I was going to start the fight and the type of energy I was going to bring and the type of strategy. So really just think over the strategy and like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I kept saying for like what was it, like months before or like weeks before that, like I was going to start off the fight putting my left hand up and like throwing a right hand to the body as hard as I did. And I actually did that. So I mean, at least that part of my mental exercise worked, and like I actually did what I wanted to do. But yeah, and I guess for like, I don't even stretch like that. I'm supposed to, but I don't really do it. But like you said, like I'll shake up my arms,
You should do a lot of stretches beforehand, maybe. I think that's a really good idea to do.
Yeah, I used to, but I'm so lazy with those. So
You don't want to injure yourself. You gotta do stretches.
yeah. Probably, you know, with stuff like that, it takes me to actually get injured, and then I'll be like, okay, now I'll stretch. But like, it's one of those things like, hey, you got to stop. Like your mom will tell you, stop playing in the street, and then you go and bust your face open, and then you're like, okay, now I'll stop playing in the street. That's the type of thing it is for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can be stubborn with stuff like that. So, yeah. Like, are you stubborn with any? Like when your coach would tell you to do something, and like you like, is there some things?
Oh, like I remember when I was a freshman in high school. Basically, my coach, I would always put my goggles over my cap. You know how there's a swim cap,
Yeah.
right? I put my goggles over my cap. That's how I would do it in practice, right? At the competition, in practice, that's a good idea. It's fine. But on a competition, no, it's a terrible idea because at least for a lot of people, it is a terrible. Some people still do it, but for certain goggles, it's a terrible idea because whenever you dive in, the force where you're diving in can just there's a chance, say about a 10% chance that this can happen at a race. That the strap of the goggles, it goes over, it flies off, and then your goggles are just purely relying on the suction, so they can just undo any moment, like a Superman goggle, like a Batman or something. They could just undo at any moment. So once the strap goes away, you're done for. Like the goggles are just gonna start leaking, and that's what happened. Basically, they started leaking because and they're just not tight enough, and the straps got loose. And when I dove in, and the goggles started filling up with water because the suction was losing pressure. It was losing pressure, and so I couldn't see anything, and I went so slow. And that's when I started putting my goggles under my cap. So goggles first, then the cap over. So that way the cap holds it in place.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
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 I mean, those are usually the best lessons, though. When the mistake carries a lot of weight behind it, it's hard to forget. And when a mistake is hard to forget, it forces you to improve, because that fear of that happening again is like, okay.
Especially at a big meet, like you wouldn't want that happening. Of course, there's a small chance, like a 10%. 10% is significant, but it's it's small, but it's not unlikely. It's significant. So, like some races, it wouldn't fly off, but once it flew off, then they understood it could happen. So, like about 1 out of every 10 times, it would actually fly off. So I have to put it under my goggles, and ever since I started doing that, 0 times. I had 0 issues with my goggles for the next 5 years. 0 issues, like from there to this moment. Yeah.
Sometimes those fundamentals are like way more important than you think. Even something simple like that, it can be a big deal and like throw off your entire game.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, like I think when it comes to making fundamental mistakes, sometimes you'll be like, okay, I should have did this. But also, it's not even conscious. Sometimes it's unconscious, and like it just you start fixing it unconsciously. Like when I boxed my brother, because I'm only referring to like the only competitive experience I have with that, because that's the only one I got. But like when I boxed my brother, because I recorded it, and so whenever I look at the footage, I always would say like I didn't use my jab and all that, and so. I think I worked on my jab consciously, but also unconsciously. It was like bred into me to just like focus on that, and so that became like a big element of my training. And like, do you have anything like that where like you feel in the competition that you made a mistake and then you kind of worked on it more in practice to improve?
I feel like going under. They always say, the coaches always say, do your underwaters. You know what that means? So
No.
that means on freestyle, butterfly, and backstroke, pretty much off every wall, it's recommended that you do a certain amount of dolphin kicks when you push off under the surface. So you must be completely submerged and just for about 1/3 of the way, like or at least 1/4. You have to go underwater with dolphin kicks because that's gonna save you energy and keep your momentum up. After, you know how they do flip turns? Right after the flip turn, you push off the wall and you go underwater for about 1/4 of the way or 1/3 of the way. Well, we practiced that in practice, but at the meet, I was always having a hard time actually executing that at the meet because
You wanted to rush it or something?
because I didn't have enough energy to actually I was either not thinking or not having enough energy to go underwater far. So I would be just coming up really not going not far underwater.
Mhm.
So then, and in practice, I wasn't really caring about that much either. So I was just not practicing at all. I was like, oh, I'll be fine. If I don't practice, I think I should be able to do it. Like if I practice here and there, I think I don't need to practice it all the time. Well, yes, the answer is you have to practice it as much as you can in every situation it applies to, because in the meet it'll give you more momentum. Because think about it, if you just come up, like just push off the wall and come up for breath, it's gonna slow you. It's gonna slow you down. So, and you have to do a certain amount of kicks underwater, and then make the smooth transition from kicking to actually swimming.
Yeah.
Because that breath is kind of like a pause. Of course, in long distance races and in certain races, that breath, of course, is permissible. It's allowed. But in sprints, that's a no go. In sprints, complete no go. You can't do that while you're sprinting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you said.
So then I started practicing it more in practice, and in the races it started getting better, where I started getting distance off the wall and more momentum from the underwaters and taking my breath later. And it's also holding breath. The holding breath is gotta practice, so just gotta expand my lungs by doing it in practice. So it comes over time. It can't just happen overnight, because your lungs have to practice that, you know.
You said that like you struggled either thinking or with your energy when you had to kick underwater. Do you think that's like related to adrenaline? Because oftentimes, like the thing that I noticed with adrenaline is that adrenaline will kind of expose your internal mechanics. And what I mean by that is that, let's say you practice a technique over and over, and like it looks good,
Yeah.
but then when you get in a real competitive situation, your technique kind of falls apart. So like that's why people practice thousands of times over and over the same technique, so that unconsciously that's just the way that they do it.
The adrenaline reveals your unconscious technique, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the adrenaline strips you down, and then you're there, and then in that moment you are revealed for what you really are, and like maybe that's why you struggled with that, maybe because you weren't practicing, like you said, enough with the underwater kicks, and then like when you worked on that, it's like, okay, now in the meet I can actually do this.
Yeah, whatever you practice eventually becomes your new subconscious stuff. So that way
Exactly.
your subconscious is now good instead of some crappy stuff that happened before.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I kind of want to segue into something else. So you mentioned mental preparation for swimming, right? And for boxing, right? For boxing, like you have a mental routine, how you do it, like kind of imagine the jabs and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to segue into mental health, because that we haven't really talked much about that in our podcast. Only mentioned it maybe the first episode, but we mentioned that it's tied in with physical health, and we know that mental health plays a big part in like races and being competition, but also just in general keeping you healthy. So, how do you think? Do you think someone can have good mental health but bad physical health? But is it like, so if someone has, let me ask you a question. If someone has bad physical health but good mental health, do you think that their physical health is bound to improve?
Oof. If they got good mental health and they have bad physical health, their physical health is bound to improve. That's what you said.
Yeah, like let's say they just fixed their mental health and it became really good. Like they've been working at it for a long time, and now it became good, really really good. But their physical health they haven't been working on. So now, given that their mental health is really good, is their physical health bound to improve at some point or no? Like what are the?
I think what it is it depends on your goal.
Yeah.
If your goal is to improve your physical health and mentally you're focused and you're hungry and you're happy, I think
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna accomplish your goals more efficiently if you're mentally in a better state of well-being. You know, they're like in competitions where it's directly competitive, like it's me versus you, like on the line in football, or like a wide receiver, or in basketball, or in boxing. Like when it's me versus you, you can have physical attributes over me, but mentally, if I'm stronger, I can outlast you, I can outsmart you, I can outcompete you. So I think the mental health aspect is important because not only in the competition can you use it to win, but in the preparation, that's how you build yourself stronger in every aspect, including the physical.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say. So, like, what do you think? Do you think if somebody has great mental health, that they're bound to improve their physical
I
well-being?
think yeah, because like you said, it's more easy to achieve goals if you have good mental health. It's more easy to get motivated. Like if you have good mental health, stress, the hormone that cortisol, right?
Yeah.
It degrades your body. So if you have less cortisol, right, that means your body is generally healthy. That's already a given, right? Without even doing anything, your body's healthier and less stress on your organs, and more positivity and more like good hormones get produced if you're not stressed, and that's already a given benefit that's already like comes with the package of having good mental health. It comes it like you already have a healthy body, like not like maybe you might still have some weight issues or like some issues with eating or something like that, but you're at least your hormone levels are good, and now you're happier and more motivated, and you're more likely to actually take action to lose weight or maybe gain weight or whatever it needs whatever you need to do to achieve your optimal physical condition.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is like when we're speaking about it, it's more in like the long term sense, but even in like the short term sense where you can directly see it, like you have those days where like you're getting ready for a workout and you just feel good and like you feel energized, like I'm ready. Like that feeling, like it makes you stronger, it makes you faster, it makes everything, it makes your stamina better. Like for me,
Definitely.
when I get that feeling, instead of going like 6 rounds, I can go like 8 or 12, and like I feel like really good. So like mentally, because here's the thing, I think most of the limits for average people, not even necessarily for like higher echelon athletes, they have to work on their physicality a lot of times and like pushing over like that 1%. But for like normal people, I think most of their strength can be gained in their mentality.
Yeah, definitely.
Because with an athlete, they're used to overcoming those mental hurdles, and so they've kind of passed over that, and like they're strong. But with a normal person, if they're able to psych themselves up and be like, I can bench press this weight, they can probably do it.
Yeah.
They just have to mentally get that pump up to do so.
Of course, they need a spotter just in case,
Yeah.
But of course, they can. Mind is pretty much most of the work. You can do way more than you think, right? We have these hard workouts in swimming. By the way, in swimming we refer to workouts as sets because like they write like a set, and our coach writes 10 100s or something, or 10 200s. So, and you have to complete each 200 within a certain amount of time in interval on the clock before you can go again. So if they're on 2 minutes and 30 seconds and you do each 200 in 2 minutes and 10 seconds, well, you have 20 seconds to rest, and then only after that 20 seconds break, you have to go again. So the less rest, the harder it is. So and like depends on the speed as well. So sometimes whenever we will see the coach write really really hard sets, like very little rest, kind of and where you have to actually go fast to even get like 5 seconds of rest, but you're sprinting your butt off.
Yeah.
And you're still getting 5 seconds of rest, and then you have to sprint your butt off again. Those sets, whenever I see him write it up on the board, I'm like, oh no, I'm overwhelmed. But once you actually do it, it trains your mind to be more stronger and immune to those sets. Like now mentally, you'll be able to overcome. And yes, I can do it. I can go fast and still get rest. I can go fast enough to, because if you don't go fast enough, you're not going to get any rest at all. You just have to keep going in a cycle, do straight through. So it's just that the more you do those sets, I feel like we as athletes got mentally stronger whenever we overcame the sets. But still, it's overwhelming whenever you see it, especially when you haven't done it before. It's just the more times you've done it, you're just
You're confident.
you're confident that you're gonna be able to do an even faster time. So even less rest and like maybe it's something that's like something that you haven't done before. So uh, and you can go faster. So like 1 minute and 5 seconds for 100. Well, if you do exactly 1 minute, maybe you'll be able to even swim in 55 and just get 5 seconds of rest versus swimming in a minute and getting 5 seconds of rest in the 105. So you're kind of pushing that boundary. Your full effort used to be a minute. Now your full effort is a 55
Mm-hmm.
because you got the intervals pushed and your mentality is better. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like that.
Yeah, a lot of times you can kind of trick your mind to do better than you thought you did.
Yeah.
Like yours was a good example of how like the 5 seconds will be used as kind of a driving point for you to be like, okay, I want those 5 seconds. So then you just go get them, and then when you're looking at it at first from a distance, you're like, oh my god, this is like almost impossible. But then when you do it, you're like, wow. And so it's like taking steps. You're at level 1, and then you do this, and you're like, oh wait, I can actually do level 2, and then you just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's like the mental hurdles that like I think the average person has to get used to conquering basically for their mental health. And like I think also when it comes to exercise, that's an improvement on your mental health too, because
Yeah.
you have to battle inner doubt, and you have to overcome a lot of negative emotions
Yeah,
sometimes, because
definitely.
the easiest thing to do for most people is quit and say, why am I even doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. But then when you overcome that translates into the rest of your life, and you become healthier as a person overall.
Yeah. It's like it helps you overcome hurdles, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so my next question is kind of the opposite, and basically, if you have good physical health but bad mental health, like really really good physical health, like you do you think your mental health is gonna improve? Like let's say you are working hard to improve your physical health. That means alongside a parallel, like you said, I think your answer is gonna be yes because that's what you said earlier. While you're working on your physical health, your mental health also improves side by side, right?
It's
uh,
always dependent.
It's like I don't.
It's always dependent on like the reasoning behind stuff. Like let's say you've improved your physical health because you wanted to look good, and now when you look in the mirror you feel good. Yeah, that's gonna improve your mental health. But a lot of times I think it's easier to translate internal mental strength into external physical strength. I think it's easier to translate that. But translating physicality into mentality is harder. Like I'll give you an example. Like the prime example is with materialism. People say money doesn't buy happiness, and that's true for most people because happiness is a much harder resource to control and come by and understand. So like it depends on the goal and the reasoning behind your physical well-being. Like if it makes you happy that you are physically where you want to be, then yeah, that can improve your mental health. But I don't think it's a direct relationship between like mental health raises physical health, therefore physical health must raise mental. I don't think it's like that. I think it's way different.
I feel you're right to an extent. I feel like personally that physical health can definitely improve mental health to a big degree because uh, whenever you work out, you kind of forget about your problems and get rid of all your stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, being healthy kind of helps you after a really hard workout. You start appreciating more things. You start being more positive. That oh hey, since I was able to overcome this workout, I'll be able to overcome my mental struggles. So it's kind of like it teaches you to overcome barriers. So it helps if it makes you happier. That means that just equals better mental health. So if workouts can give you happiness, then they can give you better mental health, and they can give you like more optimism. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the mentality associated with it because like, so to address what you said is that if I have a physical task in front of me, I have to lift 100 pounds off the ground, and then I do it. That does improve. I think every time you accomplish a goal that you want to accomplish, that's going to improve your mental health.
Yeah.
But I don't think necessarily making yourself physically healthier is going to help everyone mentally, because that's what's going to help to some extent, yeah. But I don't think it's going to be a massive help for everybody, because not everybody cares about that. It all depends on how much you care. Like for you, since swimming is a big deal, if you win the swim meet, it's like, oh my God, this is like, and it really boosts you mentally, and it makes you proud, it makes you happy, it makes you want to accomplish more things, and so mentally you become stronger, you become healthier. But for somebody that doesn't really care about swimming, it would be a pretty big deal. They'd be like, oh wow, I did that, but it wouldn't be like a massive boost. So I guess in the simplest sense, yeah, physical health will have some effect on the mental health, but I don't think as direct as mental health has on physical health. That's what I think.
I see. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say something. It's about phys. Forgot.
Yeah.
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 I was basically. Let me think about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh shoot.
Silence is fine, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine. All podcasts have silence.
Yeah.
I don't know about all, but I've seen
All good ones. What part of the conversation was that? Was it the weights part or the goal, or?
It was about it was about the health, the two healths having effects on each other.
Yeah. So I said mental health has like a big direct link to physical health, but I'm not sure that physical health has a big direct link to mental health. That's what I said.
Oh, I was gonna say, thanks for reminding me. I was gonna say that you accomplishing the swim meet is like a big task. So I would actually, to me personally, if I lose this swim meet, that also wouldn't really be. I wouldn't be devastated at all. I would be like, okay, but basically, the biggest thing is not winning the swim meet. For people like that care about something, the biggest thing is actually getting that new routine in place. Like for me, it would be swimming consistently or working out consistently. For some people as well, like whenever we work out consistently, that helps us. That gives us kind of a mental boost to kind of find happiness and things like that. You know, and that kind of gives you a sense of productivity. The more productive you are, the more better mental health. So having a new routine, like a new workout routine, like that you didn't have before, because before, let's say you didn't work out at all, now you have a workout routine. That's gonna be, I feel like the biggest mental health, one of the biggest mental health boosts, just by improving your physical health, because you're gonna have that new routine and helps you be productive.
I was gonna say that I think like across the board, regardless of my argument, that is something that I would say in general, the routine, the structure, the discipline is something that physical health is always going to translate into mental health.
Yeah.
But I guess I just had a problem with the phrasing of the question, because like I was thinking, like the way I thought of the question was, okay, let's say this dude is ripped and he's healthy.
Talking about the image, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking. I guess I was thinking of the end product and not the process to get there. But the process of making yourself physically
like
healthier.
Make it lifestyle.
Yeah, the process of making you physically healthier is, I think, inevitably, well, however you would say it, I think it's inevitable that that's gonna translate into mental health. I think that's scientific.
Yeah,
if you're like having a discipline, that's gonna translate to mental health. Getting your body healthier, that's gonna like translate to your brain and all that.
As well, like,
eating better, like all of that is gonna like help you mentally in some sort. But I just think the mind is so much more powerful than the body. Definitely. And that's exactly my point, is that when it comes to your mental health, you can Like there was this world's strongest man. His name is Eddie Hall.
Yeah.
He lifted 500 kilograms off the ground,
Mhm.
and how he did that was that, and I think he jumped like multiple dozens of kilograms to get up to that weight. But how he jumped that up to that weight, and it seemed impossible because no human being ever done that before him. 500 kilograms deadlift off the ground. It's ridiculous. But how he did that is that he had like this hypnotist that would like put him in like a hypnotic state, where he would go into like this rage, and he would like imagine his family getting murdered, and like he would go into like this rage, and so like he like went into that rage, and then he went over and lifted up the weight, and like he looked at everyone, and it's like his eyes were bloodshot, and like his blood was coming out of his nose. Like it was one of the most legendary things of all time. But the way he did that was through his mind. He jumped through his mind.
I don't know if it's a good thing that his nose is bleeding.
No, he forgot his name and like his family for like a couple weeks. It was ridiculous, and yeah, he like blacked out and like yeah, it was it was crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that the mind, I think the mind has so much more of a powerful control over the body than the body has over the mind. So that's my point overall.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of things, but in this podcast,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So, I guess I hope y'all enjoyed, and we'll see you next time, right?
Most definitely. See y'all.
See you.